Welcome to your astrological forecast for the week of Monday, August 26th through Sunday, September 1st, 2024. That's right, we are already ending August and beginning September. Pretty wild. And speaking of wild, we've had some pretty wild times just last week in particular, I think, with those two simultaneous T-squares. You heard me kind of rant and rave about those. We are still sort of, hungover from those, I guess you could say. We're still recovering. There's still a lot of intensity, and there is a lot changing this week as well. I don't think it will be as maybe intense or shocking as it was last week. However, again, there are some major changes that we need to talk about for this week. As we start the week, we still have Mercury retrograde. However, that will change. So keep in mind, I talk about this, how technically this week we will have Mercury stationing direct. And because of that, Mercury's basically at a standstill all week, okay? Because this isn't something that just happens really, instantaneously and dramatically. When planets station retrograde, or in this case station direct, they will first slow down, they'll appear to stop, and then gradually they'll appear to start moving forward, okay? So as Mercury is doing this, it's intensifying, because the slower a planet moves, the more intense its meaning becomes. And so really all week there is potential for very intense information, intense communication, intense insights. We are continuing to go through a pivoting, as I've been saying recently, and I heard that another astrologer used that same word, which is super cool, because I promise you those were completely independent. I don't watch her forecast. I doubt that she watches mine. So it's really cool. I'm seeing something that I think others have seen, that you guys have seen as well. We're in this huge transitional phase, really the last couple of weeks, but even as we go into September now, we're at a turning point. Things are transitioning, and we're going to feel that very dramatically this week as Mercury transitions from retrograde to direct. But before we talk more about that, I guess I should say that if you want a reading, please hit me up. Really, I don't think a lot of people watch these forecasts, to be honest, but, I actually contemplated not even doing it this week. But I think some of you do get something out of these. So show me some love if you can, some comments, or if you want to like the video, even that helps. Or if you wanted to make a donation or get a reading, you can definitely do that too. All of my information is in the description. But yeah, I just, it's just kind of my way of gauging what is useful to you. I hope that these videos are useful to you. Anyway, enough of that. So let's talk about Monday, August 26th. So this is a particularly interesting day for me, but it's not about me. So we have a third quarter moon at 3 degrees Gemini. So you can see here it happens early in the day, Eastern Standard Time, sometime in the morning. But really this is going to affect us all day. And I feel like everyone just kind of glazes over, their eyes glaze over when I talk about quarter moons. I don't know why I feel that way, but that shouldn't be the case though, because quarter moons will rock your world in no uncertain terms. They are very reminiscent of full moons, like the same kind of energy that a full moon has. I do think it's very similar with quarter moons. Quarter moons can actually be even more action oriented. They stir the pot, so to speak. They provoke us. They provoke us to make change and to learn new things. And especially with this one in particular, this is a third quarter moon. Third quarter moons in particular are very philosophical. So much of this change and energy and the drama and action, much of that may be going on a physical kind of literal level, but much of it is psychological, mental. It's affecting us mentally as well, intellectually. Part of that is just because that's the nature of a third quarter moon. First quarter moon is it's the first quarter of the way through the cycle. So it's more about physical, literal action. When we get 3/4 of the way through the lunar cycle to the point we are now, the lunar cycle is wrapping up. It's preparing to end. We're entering that final quarter. And so that's why the themes are still very action oriented at this time, but they're also more cerebral, more, they start to become more ethereal and kind of non-physical. But all of this is especially true because for this particular quarter moon, we have Sun in Virgo being squared by Moon in Gemini. So both the sun and the moon are ruled by Mercury. And again, Mercury's only 2 days away from stationing direct. So Mercury's basically at a standstill, very intense. It's kind of out of place in Leo. So it's really interesting what a weird kind of state that Mercury's in, and yet it's ruling over both the sun and the moon as they square each other for this third quarter moon. So basically, in a nutshell, it looks kind of like a clusterfuck. It looks like this could be chaotic, messy. I think mutable squares are very messy, and there can be a lot of frenetic energy, a lot of scattered energy, because within just one mutable sign, you have so much going on. There's so much complexity. It's very multifaceted. That would be true just with one, planet in Virgo or one planet in Gemini. But we've got Sun and Venus in Virgo, Mars, Jupiter, and the Moon all in Gemini. And then not only all of that, but Moon and Sun making this direct aspect, squaring each other. So yeah, basically it just means that there's tons of changes when it comes to the mental energy right now. So yes, on the one hand, it does look chaotic. It could be stressful. We might be too busy right now. We could be prone to burnout. On the other hand, though, this could be very exciting in the sense that we may be learning new things. We may be, I don't know, we may be reaching a turning point with information or with our perspective. Perspectives can change really dramatically with an aspect like this. And honestly, I think that sums it up. So I'm going to continue. Going to Wednesday, August 28th, this is the actual day where Mercury technically stations direct. But again, just remember that this is a gradual process. Like, you can mark, August 28th in your calendar if you really wanted to. That is the technical point where Mercury is no longer stationing retrograde. But whenever I see that, I really just think of the whole week as being, Mercury stationary. Kind of like an in-between phase between Mercury retrograde and Mercury direct, if that makes sense. It's not like we just flick a light switch and everything goes back to normal. And really, I described Mercury stationing retrograde a few weeks ago. It really just feels like, I don't know, a week ago. But back when Mercury stationed retrograde, I believe on August 2nd, I talked about how the start of Mercury retrograde is what I believe to be generally the most dysfunctional part of Mercury retrograde. But I would say the second most dysfunctional part is the very end, because either way you're having to adapt to a change, right? You're having to adapt to a new rhythm. I really feel like Mercury, besides having to do with information and communication, it also has to do with kind of the rhythm of our lives, kind of, our busyness, our schedules, our errands, things like that, tasks. All of that, it's kind of just the routine, the rhythm, etc. So when Mercury, changes in either direction from our point of view, it's at the very least, it's, we have to adapt to that new way of moving along, if that makes sense. So really for the last pretty much all month, if you think about it, we have been delving in and, going backwards and re-looking at things, maybe getting reacquainted with people from our past. I always include family members in that as well, because, who did you grow up with? Who was there back then? Just because it's people from your past doesn't mean that they're not, necessarily completely separate from your lives now. It's just about re-examining issues from the past, people from the past, etc. And just there's all these words with Mercury retrograde: re-examining, rethinking, redoing, whatever you can think of. So now, we're having to make this huge adjustment this week, moving forward again. And Mercury had entered Virgo, I believe, toward the end of July, beginning of August. So, really for much of this month, we've had Mercury go back into Leo. So there's some kind of unfinished business here that we've been dealing with and gaining more perspective on really the last couple of weeks. So now, hopefully at this point, by Wednesday or this week in general, we should be at a turning point where we've done the homework, ideally. We've gotten more perspective. We've maybe taken a second look at things. We've digested and kind of integrated on a mental and intuitive level. And hopefully we're much more aware of our situations now than we were during the onset of Mercury retrograde. Okay. That's ideally, how we can utilize this sort of natural phenomenon, I guess you could call it. So yeah, really Mercury stationing direct can be very exciting. We still do have to traverse the same area in the sense that, Mercury still has to cover the area that it just went backward over. So in other words, when it comes to the information, when it comes to all this soul searching that we've been doing and re-examining things, we're still going to be focusing on those same things. However, this is still exciting because with Mercury, moving forward from our perception, we are moving forward now. Does that make sense? Like, rather than going backward and doing all this soul searching and digging, I mean, I guess that can be exciting too, but it's a lot of work, right? So now we've kind of done the work. Now we're kind of just tying up loose ends as we move forward. It's really just that we're moving forward. We're still dealing with the same themes and things, I guess. But again, in a much more productive way, in a more linear way, more straightforward way, we're moving forward. Thursday, August 29th, this is where Venus enters Libra, and I really like this. Venus has such a hard time in Virgo. She really does, and she's so at home in Libra. So it really is a dramatic shift, I think. For those of you that have, Libra rising, or even to a lesser extent Taurus rising, if you have a lot of Venus ruled placements in your chart, or if you have Venus very strong in your chart, you'll notice this shift. You'll notice a shift on and around Thursday, August 29th. You may just feel more yourself, more at home, more at peace, more in your element, etc. But even for the rest of us as well, maybe to a lesser extent, but I think with Venus in Libra, our desires and attraction may be just a little bit more straightforward, less reaching, less fleeting. And this is really going to be a blessing because I think for the last several weeks with Venus in Virgo and Jupiter in Gemini, I mean, yeah, both the benefics were in these really intellectual signs. Really, for a period there, we had Venus and the Sun in Virgo. And Sun's not in detriment in Virgo, but it's not like super having a great time there either. But my point is, both the benefics have been in detriment for some time. Technically, Venus was in fall, not detriment, whatever. But with Venus in Virgo, Jupiter in Gemini, those are actually some really rough placements. The joy, the expansion, the pleasure, all of those things have been kind of estranged for the last few weeks. It's been hard to reach those. We've had to look, outside of the box. We've had to be creative and maybe individualistic to come up with our own new pleasures, or new, not just pleasures, but our intentions. What do we want? What makes life fun and worth living? How can we enjoy life? All of these things may have been, I don't know, either more difficult, challenged, delayed. I think part of that is Venus and Jupiter, they just don't do well in these really intellectual, brainy, Mercury ruled signs. If you're constantly overanalyzing everything in this really detached way, how can you ever hope to just kind of enjoy life? It's maybe a difficult, I don't know. It's, for some reason, those planets just don't do well there. So anyway, my point is, let's not dwell on that, I guess, too much. We're moving out of that. Of course, Jupiter's still in Gemini, but now with Venus in Libra, I think this is very beautiful. It does still slightly annoy me, if I'm being honest, that we have, I guess, Sun and Mercury in mutual reception, which I guess if you put it that way, that actually sounds really nice. Ideally, we'd have Sun in Leo, Mercury in Virgo, so that both of them are at home. But we're not here living life for everything to be perfect, right? You guys know that. We're here to learn. We're here to, I don't know, whatever you believe in. I'm sorry, I'm in kind of a weird mood. Hopefully that's okay. But I did want to point out too, also for Thursday, August 29th, we do have Moon in Cancer, which is really nice. And it's making this kind of sextile to the Sun. So I think there's this strange kind of harmony that kind of, I don't know, comes out of nowhere on Thursday. Things are still a little weird. Mercury is still, again, hungover, or kind of waking up from its retrograde. We're still just starting to move forward on that front. So again, things are still a little weird. However, with Venus and Libra, the pleasure is a little bit more straightforward. With Moon in Cancer for these couple days, we know how we feel, which I think can be refreshing. You Cancers, you don't always realize that, how the rest of us don't know how we feel, and that can be a struggle on its own. At least you know how you feel, right? So anyway, yeah, and again, Moon sextiling the Sun is pretty beautiful as well. So, yeah. So weird day. I know that was a little bit whatever, but hopefully that makes sense. Sunday, September 1st. I need to move one day forward. My apologies. Sunday, September 1st, we have two major bullet points for today. One is that Pluto, which has been retrograde, Pluto's entering Capricorn, which, why do I feel like so many of us have forgotten that Pluto still has a little bit of time left in Capricorn? I believe Pluto's been in Aquarius twice now, and, is now going back to Capricorn. And just in case you're wondering, Pluto will remain in Capricorn until November 19th of this year. So, I mean, not a dramatically long time. It is a couple months. And I don't know. I think for many of us, this may be kind of a buzzkill. I think for better or for worse, things are more exciting with Pluto in Aquarius. And I know that, there are some pretty significant, intense world events that are not preferable, that have kind of happened a lot since or developed since Pluto has entered Aquarius. So I'm not trying to say everything's like sunshine and rainbows, but I don't know, part of me I guess is biased in favor of Pluto and Aquarius, excuse me. Pluto and Capricorn is just a very heavy energy. It's like this gridlock energy. It's what we experienced between late 2008 up until the last year or two, really. So it's been, I don't know, kind of depressing. Sue me if I would rather have the world be kind of crazy and eventful rather than, I don't know, this really heavy, slowly dying type of feeling that Pluto and Capricorn seems to have. That's at least my perspective. I don't know how you feel. But anyway, Pluto is retrograding to Capricorn. That's the important thing. And that basically means that we have some unfinished business with those Pluto and Capricorn themes. And this is more so on a global level, a systemic level, societal level. This is affecting history. This is affecting world events and things like that. But yeah, I mean, gosh, Pluto and Capricorn, it just seems like such a heavy period. I mean, it started with the stock market crashing in 2008, and then it ended, COVID and all that was kind of, taking up the last few years of Pluto and Capricorn. And then, there's kind of everything in between, which is, I don't know. The Pluto and Capricorn period has really been the decade and a half or so where we all kind of woke up to seeing the levels of corruption that exist in our society, in our governments, in our economies. We're all aware of that now. We may disagree on, the source of the corruption and what to do about it. We're all, everything's very divided in those areas. But at least we can agree. I wish we could focus more on, what we agree on, which is that, the society is messed up. There is huge corruption going on. And I think we all understand that way more than we did back in 2007. Can you even imagine? That was so long ago. We still had Pluto in Sagittarius, so we're still, seeing things larger than life in the 2000s. It was still, very up and down, but still much more positive, for better or for worse, than this really sobering, realistic perspective that we've gained from Pluto and Capricorn. So anyway, we've got a couple more months of that. Also, we have Uranus stationing retrograde today on Sunday, September 1st. And it will do so at 27 degrees Taurus. So really, a friend of mine actually pointed this out. There are so many retrograde planets right now. I think the reason why I didn't really notice was because it hasn't been affecting the inner planets as much. Yes, we did just have Mercury retrograde, but that was it, right? However, when you look at the outer planets, as we start out the month of September, we have every outer planet retrograde. Every planet beyond Jupiter is retrograde. Even Chiron is retrograde. So that would be, as Uranus stations retrograde now, it's Uranus, Saturn, Neptune, Chiron, and Pluto. They're all retrograde. And as you probably know, all of these more outer planets, these slower planets, they more affect us on a societal level, global level, long-term level, historical level. So with all of these like long-term global planets retrograde, that means that we're going back, which I don't know. I guess that sounds exciting, but also scary. There's something historically from our past that is coming back up to the surface. Or a different way of looking at it would be to say, we may be gaining new insight on previous events, previous timelines, previous eras. Maybe something happened from, I don't know, a year or two ago, or maybe longer than that ago. I feel like here in the United States, the first thing that comes to mind when talking about these types of things is Trump running for president again. It feels like it's 2016 again with, I don't know, the whole political situation in a way, if you think about it, right? I feel like that's not too much of a stretch, with Biden and Kamala Harris to some extent. She is like relatively new. Like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, she wasn't running for president necessarily in 2016, or was she? I have to back out of this whole political talk because I don't want you guys to fact check me, and that's not really my area of expertise. But I'm just saying, like, on a political or historical, societal, or international level, there's some kinds of themes coming up from the past. So think about, what does that make you think of? It can really mean different things for different people in different parts of the world. So, but yeah, very, very interesting. We might be learning new things about the past and about our long-term situation. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have for you for this forecast. Thank you so much for joining me. I felt like there's something else I wanted to talk about, but I think I covered everything. I did forget to talk about, Virgo season, but I think you guys all understand that. Next week, we have a new moon in Virgo at 11 degrees. If you have any major placements around 11 degrees Virgo, that might be something to look at. And also Mars will change signs and become debilitated when it enters Cancer. So yeah, I hope you'll join me next week. Otherwise, thanks so much for hanging out with me. Get a reading if you want, make a donation. And yeah, thanks for watching. Have a great day.